Herb. Herb is a plant. I mean, herbs are good for everything. Herb.
Welcome to Eugene Cannabis TV. You got Dank, your host. This is episode 653. And we are on a hot summer night and in the studio with no air conditioning, but it's not too bad. Always invite people to come down to the show, watch us film it, or be part of it. Even better yet, it's no obligation, but love to have you come by. I want to talk about the NORML conference is coming up. I just got word on this. I went to a couple, I guess, NORML conferences over the years. This one's going to be in Washington, D.C. This is dated July 10th this year, suggesting that you register for the 2017 NORML conference. It's in Washington, D.C. It's going to be at the Capitol Hilton, and it'll be a congressional lobby day at the United States Capitol scheduled at the same time. And that's going to be September 10th to the 12th. Hundreds of marijuana consumers, activists, patients, and business owners are expected to attend a day-long training and informational conference on Monday and reconvene on the Hill Tuesday to personally lobby their elected members of the House of Representatives and Senate. Whether you're a longtime activist, college student, medical marijuana patient, or simply a NORML supporter, consider taking this all-important step to direct to lobby your members of Congress in support of common sense marijuana law reform. During your stay, you will meet and network with like-minded activists from across the country, and your time on Capitol Hill will ensure that our message is brought face-to-face to those in Congress who need to hear it the most. We will be lobbying for expanded protection for those states that have reformed their laws and to protect the progress that we have made from Attorney General Jeff Sessions and his rogue Justice Department. Time and time again, AG Sessions has made it clear that he thinks those of us who consume cannabis are not good people. We will be in the halls of Congress to set the record straight. The DMV NORML Social, the DMV NORML Social, benefiting D.C., Virginia, and Maryland chapters of NORML will be held on Sunday, September 10th at the Dewdrop Inn located at 2801 8th Street Northeast, Washington, D.C., a 5-minute walk from the Brooklyn CUA Red Line Metro stop. The conference portion of the event will be held Monday, September 11th at Capitol Hilton. It is in walking distance from the Farragut West, Farragut North, and McPherson Square Metro stations. And the Hilton is easily accessible from the red, blue, orange, or silver Metro lines. The NORML Monday night party location details will be given to registered attendees in the weeks leading up to the event. So, early bird conference admission is $60. The DMV NORML Social is $35, and the NORML Monday night party is $35. So, obviously, we're here in Oregon, we weren't going to be able to partake in that, but I decided to let you know what was going on and kind of what it was about. I went to 2 NORML conferences I mentioned earlier. I've been to one in Portland and one in San Francisco. The one in San Francisco was Tommy Chong was there, and that was quite a memorable time. So I like to tell people that Tommy Chong, when you see him on TV, he's not acting. That's Tommy Chong. That's just the way he is. Yeah, very witty and funny. Anyway, now back to Oregon. Oregon's LCC seeks input through public survey. I first read this, I thought to myself, I don't know if they want to hear what a lot of us have to say or not, especially as cannabis issues and the way things have been going. But anyway, it reads the Oregon Liquor Control Commission, OLCC, and the state agency tasked with administrating the Oregon liquor and cannabis markets is asking for public input by way of a survey available to the public. It's another chance for cannabis consumers and businesses in the state to voice their opinions and offer advice to the agency that has been regulating the cannabis market. What the OLCC says here is, you are invited to participate in a short survey to help evaluate our public service over the past year. Your participation will help the Oregon Liquor Control Commission evaluate our performance and find areas for improvement. The survey should take fewer than 10 minutes to complete. And then there's this sentence. This is the one that caught my attention. This is an informal survey only. So that's kind of like saying, well, medical marijuana, we don't know if it's really effective or not. All the evidence is anecdotal. So this is an informal survey. So in other words, they're not going to take it serious. They probably won't even use it. So they might read it. So, but anyway, all we can do is keep trying. Feedback about specific issues or processes is desired. Please do not use this survey to report suspected criminal activity or license violations. Survey results are separated from identifiers, which makes following up complaints impossible. So if you go and do that survey, if you go to the OCCnewspaper.com website, you can find the article on it and find the or you can do a search on it. But anyway, if you're interested in taking the survey, the OLCC survey, there's a heads up on that. And then this one is interesting, out of Colorado. This is written by the Associated Press, titled Colorado Court, Cannabis Smell Not Enough to Search Car. Out of Denver, the drug-sniffing police dogs in Colorado may need new training if they can detect marijuana after a ruling last week by the Colorado Court of Appeals that sets a new precedent for drug cases. A 3-judge panel agreed that if a drug-sniffing dog is trained to alert officers to marijuana and other drugs, cops need more cause to search a vehicle without permission. The decision came out of a 2015 case in Moffat County where a drug-sniffing dog named Kilo alerted officers to the presence of an illegal drug in a truck driven by Craig resident Kevin McKnight, the Grand Junction Sentinel reported. But because Kilo could not tell officers whether he smelled cannabis or other drugs, the search was illegal, judges wrote. The dog was trained to identify to detect cocaine, heroin, ecstasy, meth, and marijuana. Marijuana possession by adults over 21 is legal in Colorado. A dog sniff could result in an alert with respect to something for which, under Colorado law, a person has a legitimate expectation of privacy, judges wrote in the ruling. Because a dog sniff of a vehicle can infringe upon a legitimate expectation of privacy solely under state law, that dog sniff should now be considered a search, for the occupants are 21 years or older. Courts in other states with legal marijuana for medical or recreational purposes have said that a cannabis smell alone is insufficient for a warrantless search. These states include Arizona and California. The smell of marijuana in a Colorado search is still sufficient if there are other factors that raise an officer's suspicion. The Colorado Supreme Court in 2016 ruled that a drug dog's smell test can contribute to a probable cause determination if the suspects are doing something else to raise suspicion. The odor of marijuana is still suggestive of criminal activity, the Supreme Court wrote in that decision. But in the Moffat County case, judges concluded that the dog's alert did more than contribute to a decision to search the car because the man gave no indication he was impaired or doing anything illegal. The police lacked the requisite reasonable suspicion to subject McKnight's truck to a dog sniff, the judge wrote. The resulting search turned up a glass pipe commonly used to smoke meth, and McKnight was later convicted of possession of drug paraphernalia and possession of a controlled substance. This decision reverses McKnight's conviction. So times are changing there, state by state, I guess, as the states catch up with the laws, as our government catches up with the laws. And I've got the latest issue of the Freedom Leaf. This is the July-August issue number 26. And it's a great little magazine. I get a box of them shipped to me, and I just shoot them, so I don't have a lot of them. But if you get a hold of me at dankbagman@hotmail.com, we figure out how to get you a copy. I'll be dropping them off at some of the commercial places, Eugene, Springfield, mostly Springfield probably. But it's a great little magazine, and of course it's all cannabis issues, and they sent them out to NORML chapters and SSDP chapters, and so even though I don't have a NORML chapter anymore, they're still sending us the books, so it's appreciated. And it's really interesting now that legal marijuana. They got stores and dispensaries. You've got all these different free magazines, including Dope, which seems to be a great magazine. But personally, I hate the name. But anyway, it's really neat. And this issue, they're talking about the Summer of Love of '67, and comparing that to how things are now. And the articles on Colorado, the future of marijuana sales in California. That's going to be interesting how that all works out. Article here by Justin Strickle. Just say no to Trump-era anti-drug policies. I'm talking about Attorney General Jeff Sessions being intent on bringing back the drug war. The latest thing I've been hearing is I don't think that's gonna happen, but still, he's still talking about it. So anyway, he's the one that said, is quoted as saying, "Good people don't use marijuana." So remember that, people. If you're good people, you're not using marijuana. I think good people don't turn on good people, personally, but anyway, that's just me. Nevada becomes the 5th state to legalize recreational marijuana, and that's an interesting case too, because they don't have a supply. They're running out of supplies, and so now they're trying to figure out what to do, because it's legalized and now they're running out, and they talk about bringing it in from other states, but then that's a big violation of federal laws, and so they can't do that. But so they're in a real quandary on what to do. But the fact that Nevada got medical and now it's recreational, it's amazing, because I remember, it doesn't seem that long ago, that you could get a hard time in Nevada for having possession of a joint. So a joint could get you in the joint, as we used to say. And so it's interesting how things are changing, and mostly for the good. And oh yes, here's the article. 1967, the Vietnam War and racial strife in America helped create the U.S. counterculture. And I was in the Army myself, 67 to 70. And yeah, that was before the drug testing and all that. I did see some things happening in my unit, drug related, which one of these times we'll have to talk about, because it was an interesting story. But anyway, that's a Freedom Leaf magazine, and it's kind of almost a psychedelic cover this year. This month, or rather this issue. So take a look and keep an eye open for it. So we've got the second half coming up, and we'll be talking about how the Republicans are going to blocking an amendment for VA doctors to recommend medical marijuana. Despicable. So be right back. I'll be here. Hope you will be.
Herb. Herb is a plant. Herbs are good for everything. Why these people who want to do so much good for everyone, who call themselves governments and this and that, why them say you must not use the herb? You see? And we check that and we can't find, we just see them just say, no, you mustn't use it because it make you rebel.
Welcome back to Eugene Cannabis TV, the second half of episode 653. I was going through this Freedom Leaf that I was reading in the first part, and got some July events coming up that I'll mention real quickly. Well, I better jump through to the end of July because we've covered that page. Okay, here we go. August. The High County Cup is in Colorado on the 4th through the 6th of August. The Indo Expo is at Portland on the 5th and the 6th. Big Industry Show at New York on the 10th and 11th. Seattle Hemp Fest, of course, in Seattle at the 18th through the 20th. If you can possibly make, I recommend that highly. That is something to experience. Let's see, and then we've got the Bio Cup Canada at Legend Valley Music Festival, the 23rd and 27th. And then, let's see, the 25th to the 27th is the Secret Cup, and that's in Calaveras County, California. thesecretcup.com. It sounds interesting. 420 games in San Francisco on the 26th of August. And then in Portland, we're back in Portland again on August 28th through the 30th for the Cannabis Science Conference. So it's cannabisscienceconference.com. So a simple enough website. So anyway, there's a quick rundown of some things that are coming up that you need to be aware of. We talked about Jeff Sessions a little bit ago, and here we go. Jeff Sessions sued in a landmark lawsuit challenging the constitutionality of the Controlled Substances Act. Beleaguered Attorney General Jeff Sessions was named a defendant today in a lawsuit challenging the constitutional of the Controlled Substances Act as it pertains to cannabis and marijuana. In the 90-page complaint, attorneys representing 5 plaintiffs maintain that the CSA in classifying cannabis as a Schedule I drug is so irrational that it violates the U.S. Constitution. In their complaint, plaintiffs demonstrate that the federal government does not and could not possibly believe that cannabis meets the definition of a Schedule I drug, even is reserved for the most dangerous substances such as heroin, LSD, and mescaline. By way of comparison, cocaine and crystal meth are considered Schedule II drugs, and are thus considered less addictive and less dangerous. To be classified under a Schedule I drug, a drug must, must have a high potential for abuse, 2, must have absolutely no medical use in treatment, and 3, cannot be used or tested safely, even under strict medical supervision. The plaintiffs point out that the federal government knows that cannabis does not meet these requirements, especially given that, among other things, the federal government obtained its own medical patent based upon the federal government's assertion that medical cannabis is a safe and effective treatment for Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and HIV-induced dementia, among other conditions. Establishing a national policy to refrain from investigating and or prosecuting medical cannabis businesses and users in the 29 states and 3 other areas under American jurisdiction, including Washington, D.C., that have legalized cannabis for medical and or recreational use, provided instructions through issuance of the Fine-Send Guide on how financial institutions can bank cannabis business, and admitted that cannabis does constitute medicine, including through statements by the U.S. Surgeon General and a federal administrative law judge. The record makes clear that the CSA doesn't make any rational sense, and the federal government knows it, says Michael Hiller, excuse me, lead counsel in the case. Hiller went on to explain that if the federal government doesn't believe in the rationality of its own statute, it's unconstitutional to enforce it. Among the other claims in the lawsuit are that the CSA was enacted and implemented in order to discriminate against African Americans and to suppress people's First Amendment rights, and violates plaintiffs' constitutional right to travel. The plaintiffs include a retired professor, football player, and Super Bowl champion Marvin Washington, who desires but is ineligible due to the CSA to obtain grants under the Federal Minority Business Enterprise Program to open a business that would allow professional football players, among others, to treat with medical cannabis to reduce opioid dependency and addiction. An 11-year-old girl, Alexis Bortel, who moved to Colorado from Texas so that she could treat her intractable epilepsy with medical cannabis. A 6-year-old Georgia boy suffering from Lee's disease, Jagger-Cott, who has been using medical cannabis to lengthen his life and control his otherwise excruciating pain. Disabled military combat veteran Jose Belan, who uses medical cannabis to control his post-traumatic stress disorder. Another one is the Cannabis Cultural Association, whose membership includes many people of color who contend that the CSA has enacted and has been enforced in a discriminatory manner, rendering them unable to participate in, among other things, the cannabis industry. Lauren Rudick, a member of Hiller's team representing cannabis businesses, observed that at present more than 60% of Americans live in a jurisdiction in which medical cannabis is illegal. She also remarked that a 4/20/2017 Quinnipiac poll found that over 90% of Americans support the use of medical cannabis, and it's near impossible to get 90% of the county to agree on anything. These numbers led Joseph Bondi, a federal criminal defense attorney and legalization advocate working as co-counsel with the Hiller firm on this case, to question the agenda of those who continue to push for enforcement of the CSA, given its unlawful and discriminatory impact that so few in America support such an effort. The defendants in the case are Attorney General Jeff Sessions, Acting Administrator of the DEA Chuck Rosenberg, the Justice Department, the DEA, and the federal government. Co-counsel David Holden, a litigator and longtime advocate for legalization of cannabis, noted that the efforts to criminalize cannabis are relatively recent and were largely underwritten by racial and ethnic animus. As reflected in the complaint, African Americans and other persons of color are 4 times as likely to be arrested under the CSA than white Americans, even though cannabis is used equally by people of color and Caucasians. So there you have it, and that's we'll see how that goes. At least somebody's trying, I guess. So I think that's the main thing I have to say about that at this point. And then this is quite infuriating, and let's hope that we get a workaround on this one. The headline is, Republicans block amendment allowing VA doctors to recommend medical marijuana. And this came from the OCC newspaper. That's OCCnewspaper.com, Oregon Cannabis, the Oregon Cannabis paper. Press release is the GOP blocks Blumenauer amendment to allow VA doctors to recommend medical marijuana. Excuse me. Congressman Earl Blumenauer, founder and co-chair of the Congressional Cannabis Caucus, condemned the House Rules Committee decision to block his amendment to make it easier for qualified veterans to access state legal medical marijuana. The committee's vote prevents Blumenauer from offering the amendment when the House considers the fiscal year 2018 military construction, Veterans Affairs and related agencies appropriation bill later this week. Blumenauer released the following statement. All we want is equal treatment for our wounded warriors. This provision, overwhelmingly passed by the House floor last year, and bipartisan support has only grown. It's outrageous that the Rules Committee won't even allow a vote for our veterans. They deserve better. They deserve compassion. Given that veterans are more likely to commit suicide or die from opiate overdoses than civilians, our fight to provide them safer alternatives won't stop here. We have stronger support in the House and Senate than ever before, and we will keep advocating for a more rational approach. That's the end of the statement. The bipartisan amendment was co-sponsored by Representatives, I won't read them all off here, but we've got, they're half Republican actually, surprisingly, about half Democrat, A similar amendment passed in the Senate Appropriations Committee earlier this month by a 24-7 vote. Background. Currently, the Department of Veterans Affairs specifically prohibits its medical providers from completing forms allowing a qualified veteran to participate in a state medical marijuana program. This forces veterans out of the VA system to seek a simple recommendation for treatment for eligible conditions under state laws. Blumenauer's Blumenauer's amendment ensures that no funds made available to the VA can be used to implement this prohibition, which would, in effect, strike it down. Last year, the amendment passed on the House floor by 233 to 189, but was ultimately stripped out of the final legislation and became law. So that's extremely maddening, especially I have a dog in the fight, I guess you might say, because of being a veteran myself, and that's horrible, you know, especially our Republicans, you know, they're big on sending our guys to war, and of course a lot of Democrats too, and no doubt about it, are big on sending our guys to war, but they're not so quick on taking care of them when they come back, and we've seen that over and over, and especially with our current guy and our liar-in-chief, and let's put it that way. So let's hope that they get a workaround and get that through, because it definitely has got some pretty good support, and it's just like the fight for PSD, to get that as a medical condition for here in Oregon. We had a hell of a time doing that. I think they went through the process twice and didn't make it, and finally we went through the legislature and they were able to do it on the third try. But it shouldn't even had to do it. It should have been automatic, and it should have happened the first time, if nothing else. But anyway, that's our state, that's our government, and that's our politicians. You know, the best money can buy, as they say. That's what they claim, anyway. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this up for show number 653, and I appreciate you stopping by and checking it out. Come back another time. We're always looking for guests. Come on in the store, come on the show and tell your cannabis story. Love to have people come on and tell their stories. And whether it's medical or recreational, business, I don't care. Come on, if it's cannabis, we want to talk to you. So we'll talk to you then, and see you next week. Thanks a lot.